there's been a lot of talk about a Series A crunch, and everyone's looking at the proliferation of seed investing because of the availability of capital, from a lot of different sources, from angel investors on up, but there doesn't seem to be a corresponding, number of follow-on Series A investments. Is that, and there's a dispute about whether that's happening or not. What's your view? Is there a Series A crunch, and is that a problem?
Well, I don't think there is, but I think that doesn't mean it is uniformly distributed. I just got back from Brazil, in Rio and Sao Paulo. I met with a number of entrepreneurs who were brilliant, energetic, were working 24/7, and there was very little seed capital available to them. And so what they were asking for was figuring out how to get more support in the first stages of investment, if you will, so that they could move from prototype to product release and iterate on that product release. We opened a New York office, as you know, about 6 months ago. We still see a lot of entrepreneurs, really terrific entrepreneurs, who are not necessarily able to find enough Series A capital. And so I think that, if anything, it is the best time over the last decade that I can think of to be an entrepreneur. The collision of mobile and social platforms and the need to build these companies from the ground up, build a new social application from the ground up, whether it's a game, a healthcare application, an education application. Building these from the ground up is what allows entrepreneurial activity to be unleashed, and it's as good an opportunity from a time standpoint as I've ever seen. But there has to be capital as well.
There seems to be a real disruption in the venture capital industry as well. I mean, there are certain firms like Excel and the top tier firms that are going to do fine no matter what. But overall, there seems to be a lot of disruption, particularly competition for some of these early deals. And people maybe not even spending as much time in terms of due diligence because they feel like they need to get the deal, and they don't have that much time. I mean, to what extent do you see this as is the deal flow so great right now that it's harder to evaluate these companies, or have you changed your strategy to the point where you're trying to see companies getting more traction before you invest? I mean, how do you deal with all of this?
I'd have to say it is as difficult as it's ever been. It's always been intense, and certainly point to the Facebook story. I met Mark Zuckerberg on a Monday, April 4th, 2005, in Palo Alto, and after a dinner the next night, Mark and I shook hands on the Facebook deal on Wednesday, April 6th, 2005. So we had 2 days to really go through a very active due diligence process, make a decision, because there was a large media company that was very close to making a significant investment. Right. And even in times like 2005, which were slow for the very best entrepreneurs, we've had to go in with what we call a prepared mind, very quickly have a knowledge of a particular market space and marry that with an outstanding entrepreneur that we've identified.
But was that an exception, or has that become the norm now for you?
It's
pace.
48 hours is still the exception. But we do know for very good entrepreneurs in what would be explosive spaces, we may have a week to make a decision. And so if we're not going in, having done our homework, and knowing that segment and industry and being able to make the 5 to 10 right reference checks, we'll be at a very big disadvantage. And so we are not believers that tomorrow we could jump into a clean tech deal, an ethanol deal, and make a decision in 2 weeks or 2 months. We've chosen to focus very specific on a global basis on early stage companies that are focused on mobile, on social, on cloud computing.
Is it
and
easier
that's
to get in early
all we'll do.
in China and Brazil where there's less competition? Is that one of the reasons why you're focusing there? Or is it just because those are such large markets and the winners there are going to be local and you have to be there?
China's as competitive as Silicon Valley and New York in our direct experience. Silicon Valley perhaps is still the most competitive market, but with the largest number of true breakout entrepreneurs. The New York market's very competitive. The Beijing and Shanghai markets are very competitive. And Brazil right now is perhaps one of the really outstanding early stage markets to invest in. Brazil and China obviously have so many macroeconomic positive factors helping entrepreneurs that they can just focus on domestic middle class emergence in their markets and build sizable growth businesses.
Terrific. Well, thank you for joining us.
Eric, a real pleasure.